Konnichiwa, this is Israel Lopez Sensei of the Martial Maze. So before we get into this week's episode, this episode was recorded and filmed at DAOS CON 4. That's Nathan Ingram's Deadly Art of Survival magazine. They have an annual event that they do, and this is the fourth one in New York City. It was great. We had a great time. However, due to the DJ not playing royalty-free music, depending on what streaming device you may be listening to this episode on, there may be parts that may either have to be cut or get cut out because of monetization issues and copyright infringement issues. So just bear that in mind. We apologize. Other than that, we had a special guest who ended up coming over and sitting at the table, and we ended up chopping it up for about an hour. And we're going to let that be kind of I would say it was going to be kind of a surprise, but if you read the title of this episode, you see it says McDojoLife. So, you know that it wasn't planned out. The brother just happened to be there. I'm a fan of the show. If you do not know McDojoLife, you should check them out on YouTube. Not only does he expose fraudulent fake martial artists, but he also exposes those martial artists that have sexually assaulted pedophiles and all that other good stuff, trying to keep the martial arts community safe. And you know, we for that we salute him and we applaud him. And so let's get into this episode. And once again, thank you for listening.
Are we live now?
Yeah, I think we are live.
Oh, okay.
Konnichiwa. Welcome to the Martial Maze. I'm with my partner in crime, McDojoLife.
And I'm with my partner here, Israel Lopez Sensei.
And we are at DAOS CON, and this is DAOS CON number 4.
Yeah.
This is, you know, so if you're a fan of the show, you should know we've been talking about this for a little while. DAOS CON, Deadly Art of Survival magazine, Nathan Ingram's Deadly Art of Survival, and you know they got the lion dance about to set up here. I mean, it's so. If you are catching us live right now, you might not get all of this, but, you know, I mean, we're trying to do a thing.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do a little walk around a little later on, stuff like that. But hold up, so you can kind of get to see what's happening in the background. Hold up, we're going to pick this up and switch the view. This is where we are. And there's a lot going on. I mean, the music. We got Banana Sensei, a Martial Maze alumnus. There are a lot of Martial Maze alumnus here today. You know, and that's Glenn Beck way on the other end. I don't know if you can see him just yet, but
yeah, even Alan Goldberg is here.
Alan Goldberg, yeah, he's floating around here somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, see, my hands are always in the way. I'm like, I'm not really good at this whole live streaming thing.
I know, we're getting used to this, but hey, it's practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it is. Practice makes perfect. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We got the music in the background. So
we got DJ J Rowan.
Yeah, I'm about to say, Ronan's here, rolling with Ronan.
Yeah.
He's in his house. You know
representing
what I'm
Brooklyn. Bed-Stuy.
I'm just repeating everything you say at this point.
Nah, there's a lot of great martial artists here. All right, here we
go.
The lion.
About to start lion dance.
Yeah, it's starting now.
Well, here we go.
Let's watch it.
Konnichiwa. I'm Israel Lopez Sensei of the Martial Maze. Right now, you might be asking yourself, what is the Martial Maze? Well, I'm here to tell you. The Martial Maze is a martial arts podcast that deals with the complexities and pitfalls that one encounters when navigating the field of study that is martial arts. These discussions are from the points of view of actual martial artists, and we cover it all, with the occasional special guest, who of course are masters in their fields of study. From the president of the United States Judo Association to karate and kung fu royalty. Myself and McDojoLife have over 40 plus years of martial experience. So please join us as we make our way through the martial maze. New episodes drop weekly, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. All right, Konnichiwa. So, yeah, we're back. All right, so we got a bit of a treat right now. I mean, so Hilly Anderson is killing it on the floor. But, yo, we got McDojoLife sitting with us right now. Brother, I don't even know your real name.
Rob.
How you doing, Rob?
Nice to meet you.
So you do McDojoLife?
Yes, sir. About almost 11 years now. I've been doing
11 years.
martial arts for about 26.
Okay, all right. So what style, just real quick?
So we literally just talked about it. So I am a third-degree black belt in American freestyle karate, which
Okay.
is like a Joe Louis, Bill Wallace type of karate. We didn't do any katas. It was more like kickboxing.
Yeah.
Purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay. All right. So
yes.
you all right then?
Third-degree black belt in something called Lissa Jodo, which basically just means I'm good with nunchucks, which is fairly useless. I ran a martial arts school for 4 years, 6-0 amateur boxer, 4-2 amateur kickboxer, and on an international kickboxing team called Team Full Circle, and I did that for about 2 years.
Okay, all right. So, yeah. So, all right. So what folks don't know then is that you're an actual martial artist.
Yeah, I've been doing it since I was 12. So.
Okay, so that just puts a lot more shine on you at that point. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not even like at some point somebody would say, "Well, McDojoLife," and well, that guy might not even be a real martial artist. Now we're going, well, no, he is a real martial artist, and maybe that's why he can recognize the bullshit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've never tasted dog shit, but I can spot it. Okay. And most people can, right? Now, most people have probably never tasted it, but they can spot it out in a crowd. So it's the same thing with stuff like this, right? I don't think that you have to have like this vast knowledge of the industry to spot the BS. I just think that you have to have an open mind to ask the question, what if? And I think that's how you can start figuring out what works and what doesn't. What if this happens? Actually, one of the instructors here today, Jody Tension, I love Jody. I've been watching him since I was a kid, like literally when I was 12, watching him compete. And he has like this really good philosophy about martial arts. And what he says is fighting another person is basically just asking each other questions until the other person doesn't have an answer.
Okay,
right?
I like that. Yeah.
So it's like I ask you a question, I jab you in the face, right? Can you stop that? What do you do if I do this? And I think spotting BS is the same. You're just asking questions. And the moment you start running into because I said so, the moment you start running into it works, I don't have to prove it to you, it only works in the street. The moment you start running into those things is when you start spotting BS.
Well, so we did a whole thing about that, and I was like, so like a lot of times what I've caught on your platform is the grand examples, meaning you got the guy who's kind of waving his hands and people are just falling over. Mm. But there's the saying, a sucker's born every minute, typically comes just all good lies. All the best ones have a lot of truth around them, which shields it, you know what I'm saying? And I love that you get into that a little bit about talking about like these are red flags, so we've talked about that on our show a couple of times. I covered all the time. It's actually a pet peeve of mine and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, I can't fathom training under anybody who's never been in a real fight before. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, this is all on theory. I'm like, well, yes, my life isn't worth theory.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Over the years, you start to kind of figure out martial arts in general. When people have never been in martial arts, it seems very convoluted. Mm-hmm. Like if you go into a karate school, that's a sensei. You go into a kung fu school, that's a sifu. You go into a jiu-jitsu academy, it's a professor. Or you go into an MMA school, it's a coach. So like they're all the same crap. It's all an instructor. They're a teacher, right? It's just a matter of like the new guy coming in, they might not know that it's all the same. It might sound different, but it's truly not. And body mechanics is body mechanics.
Yeah, if the human body has not changed.
Yeah, it's like if I reach out and I grab this soda, like I'm going to right now, and bring it back to my face, that's still the mechanics of a jab. Nothing has changed. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get my reps in. But it's all the same. It's all the same thing. And so what people fail to realize is that martial arts really at the end of the day doesn't evolve not because it's getting diluted or whatever. It's always been diluted, always. The problem is that people have a hard time agreeing in martial arts. If we can find things to agree about, we can grow the sport, we can grow the art. But we don't. We infight, and that's bullshit because you don't do what I do. Is basically what martial arts is all about right now. Oh, that doesn't work because you don't do it what I do, or you don't do what you do for the reason I do it. Like people in their 20s, oh man, that doesn't work in a street fight. Who cares? I don't care. Like if I go to a John Wick movie, right? Do I look at that and go, that would never work? No, I don't care. You know why? Because the people who were on the stunt team, the 8711 guys, they still got my money. They could care less if it works or not. They're there to entertain you, and that's okay.
Well, yeah, because I mean, real life is really ugly. And if fights look that pretty in real life, I'd be shit.
And then, all we're really trying to do is we're trying as martial artists to sway things in our favor. Nothing is 100%. Nothing works all the time. Anyone can be beaten. And if that's the case, why do it? If anyone can be beaten, I've seen Anderson Silva get knocked out. Does that mean he's not one of the baddest dudes on the planet?
No,
he still is, right? It just means that anyone can be beaten no matter how good you are.
Oh, yeah.
And that's okay. I think that if people want to learn martial arts for their reason, lose weight, cool, do it. Who cares if you can fight? If you need a gastric bypass, you lose 30 pounds, then you can get the gastric bypass and it saves your life. Didn't martial arts still save your life, whether you had to defend yourself or not?
I really think I think that a lot of times that has more to do with when we look at what the term. So I've talked about this in the past, that martial arts doesn't mean what it used to mean. So martial art in general is a European word. It comes from the god of Mars, the fighting, and Greek mythology, all that other good stuff. So it always meant combatives, military style combatives. However, all these truths can be all true all at once, meaning it was the peasants in the field, the aristocrats, or it was, and it evolved, it changed here, did that, just that, and the third, or just that. Where it came from combatives, well, a lot of people don't use it. I mean, if I'm living my life in such a way where violence misses me, then why would I ever learn martial arts?
Yeah, I think situation dictates technique.
Yes.
So, for instance, right now, if I told you to swim, that would be very useless right now. You would look very odd, any of us, right? Because we're not in the water. We don't need that skill right now. I need it when I need it, It's just one of those things where it's a tool, and you need it when you need it, and if you don't, that's okay.
Well, I always say, so I do this whole thing about, and actually it's not even mine. It came from someone else that said, martial arts for me is like learning to swim. I believe everybody should learn how to swim, because at some point in your life you're going to encounter a body of water. You just are. You know what I'm saying? And the failure to not being able to swim is, well, you die or drown or need somebody to save you. And so I say, well, martial arts is kind of the same thing. No one's saying that you have to be the greatest kickboxer in the world or the greatest BJJ guy or judo guy, because I'm a judo guy, in the world. But having just enough good situational awareness, just your own personal things that keep you protected, keep you safe. I mean, the same tactics that are taught in martial sciences, and the physical part of what we look at, air quotations, as karate or taekwondo or whatever. When I have a firearm, I'm using those very same practices.
I talk about that too. JKD talks about that a lot, where they talk about ranges of combat. And there are really 5 ranges of combat. And the first range of combat that any warfare ever gets into is projectile. Whether I'm throwing a rock, whether I'm throwing something at you, whatever the case may be, whether I'm shooting at you.
I'm going to touch you with my rifle from 300 yards out. You're never going to get close enough
exactly.
to me. Yeah. No, that's great, man. I'm like, I told you this off air. Someone say it on air. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you.
I started watching your videos way back in the day. I think I've quoted it a handful of times, McDojo. I'm like, well, if you're from a McDojo, and stuff like that. So what made you made you create McDojoLife?
So it was like a conversation. So I was working at a jiu-jitsu and. Sorry, the guy's talking right now, so it's messing with me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, with the headsets, I don't hear it.
Yeah. It's a weird catch-22, because if I had the headset on, you would just hear me slur and lisp all over the place.
They'd be like, was he drunk?
I think he's trying to communicate with us, but I don't know what he's saying.
You're one of them lizard people. I've heard so much about that. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I was working at a jiu-jitsu academy at the time. I was a striking coach there. I was also helping teach the kids program, and I was also helping out with the behind the desk stuff, all the behind the counter stuff, things like that. And my boss calls me, and it's a noon class, and he says, "Hey man, I'm sick. I'm not going to be able to make it in today. Will you do me a favor and teach the class?" Yeah, not a problem. So I teach the class. We do a triangle choke, arm bar from guard, and then we do variations of how to do those things and transition, and then we spar. And then at the end of class, most of those guys didn't have to go to work.
Okay.
So most of those guys, they just move on with their day, or we just hang out. So we just started hanging out at the gym. We're going back and forth having a conversation, and the subject of McDojos came up. So once the subject of McDojos came up, we were talking about it probably 30, 40 minutes or whatever. And then after that, everyone left. And then one guy stayed. After he stayed, sorry, I'm trying so hard to talk through this right now. It's so difficult. I know I'm going,
No, look, it's okay.
I'm going to pause so that way I can get the actual story without all of that.
Okay.
So I'll wait for him to finish.
Hello, this is Israel Lopez Sensei of the Marshall Maze. If you're a fan of our podcast or our YouTube channel, The Marshall Maze Presents Modern Combatives, did you know that you could support future episodes on both platforms by becoming a subscriber to our Patreon? Membership entitles you to exclusive Marshall Maze content not shared on either the podcast or our YouTube channel, The Marshall Maze Presents Modern Combatives, as well as limited edition only available to our Patreon subscribers merchandise. That's exclusive stuff, y'all. Where there are 3 different tiers to choose from, bronze, silver, or gold memberships, gold being the very best. No matter what tier, and to show our appreciation for you, the subscriber, and to celebrate our 4th season of the Marshall Maze podcast, we are giving away to one lucky subscriber every month free Marshall Maze merchandise. That merchandise is anything that we sell on our Marshall Maze page. That's www.marshallmaze.com. A new winner will be chosen each month through the duration of 2024. That's our way of sincerely saying thank you. But please keep in mind, you can't win if you're not a subscriber. That's the Marshall Maze at Patreon. And once again, thank you for becoming a subscriber, and thank you for listening.
Well, damn, now he's done. Shit. Go figure. So, to start over.
Okay.
So, I was working at a jiu-jitsu academy at the time as a striking coach. I was helping out with the kids program, and I was also helping out with the paperwork behind the desk doing, the day-to-day operations. And boss calls me, noon. He asked me to come in, teach the class. I teach the class, right? We talk about McDojos after the class is over, but there was a new guy there who had never – it was like his first official class. Uh-huh. So he had already done his free trial, signed up. He's hooked, right?
Yeah, he's in.
So his first real class. And after everyone left, he pulls me to the side and he goes, hey, man, I'm a little embarrassed. What's a McDojo? And at the time, like a McDojo's been a term before I ever was probably born, right? It's been around forever.
No, you know what? I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. It's been around way before I was ever even in martial arts, so –
I did know that because it's the whole thing with Valari. Never mind. Go ahead. Yeah,
so
okay, go ahead.
I wind up having a conversation with him about it and explaining what I at the time believed a McDojo was, which my thought processes since I started have completely changed. But when I explained it, he just asked me a very basic question: why doesn't anyone do anything about that? And I thought about it, and I was like, that's a good question. If we have rapists and con men and pedophiles and frauds and liars in something that's hidden behind honor, integrity, and discipline, why do we allow that?
Uh-huh.
And so I started looking into it, and the only thing I could really find at the time was a thing called Bullshido, which is like a forum.
But
when I looked into it, the problem was no one was trying to provide a solution. They were basically just like bullying people, like making fun of them, having a chuckle, but no one was trying to provide a legitimate solution to this problem. And that, in a nutshell, is why the industry, in my opinion, has not grown. Because everybody's too busy in this self-centered, this is how we do it, it's the best. Instead of saying, you know what, maybe you might have some good thoughts. Let's listen to each other so we can grow together. And then if I'm respectful to you, maybe you'll be respectful to me, and then maybe we'll find a middle ground where we can all grow. And so I figured the best way to start McDojoLife was to figure out what can we all agree on. And the only thing I could figure out that martial arts agree on are what we disagree on, right? And so I was like, that's a good start. Well, what do we all dislike? We don't like rapists. I can think of no martial arts studio that's like, yes, we teach rapists. Come on in.
Please, come on in.
No one likes pedophiles, ever, no matter where you are. No one likes people who lie in the industry because you're always going to get caught. No one likes people who mislabel things. Like if this is cardio kickboxing, cool.
Call it
cardio. Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes that comes from a place of ignorance. We want some, because we have a weird vetting process, and we understand not everybody has a Minkyo Kaiten. And hybrid systems are really hard to go back to the original lineage, this, that, and the third. It becomes a bit problematic simply because there are a whole host of folks that come from hybrid systems, where there was no Minkyo Kaiten because they caught it from the military. The guy didn't stay that long. He only earned a black belt, came back, did it for whatever reason, because Barack and I had that conversation on the way here today. But for whatever reason, you end up with all of that. So I kind of feel like we kind of came about it the same way. So believe it or not, the Marshall Maze came about because I felt like there was no one educating folks on what red flags to look for. I mean, there were a couple videos out there, this, that, and the third, and then even palathers from actual martial artists who are kind of going, hey, because some of us can be elitist. I have to admit that. Even myself, when I got really into contests, the judo and stuff like that, it was kind of like, yeah, man, that's not going to work. Or, you know what I'm saying? I'm quite sure even Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I learned that too. I cross-trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think almost all judoka do now at this point. But it was just one of them things, carrying around that the bro man like stigma for a little while. Then I kind of eased off that and started looking for the dough. But that's my own personal journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's legitimately why we started doing what we were doing. Because your platform, I told you, your platform was a huge inspiration to that, and Bullshido. And again, like I said, it was what I found though is no matter how much we tried to educate and tell folks this, that, and the third. Hey, this is what you want to look for. This may be a red flag. If you can check all these boxes, leave. Don't give them any more of your money. Leave and stuff like that. But even now, I mean, the struggle is real. But yeah, we've definitely had our fair share of people coming at us like, well, what makes you an authority? And I'm like, well, I started this when I was 6 years old. I haven't stopped. I mean, literally haven't stopped. Well, 5.5, but I always say closer to 6. But I only really count my adult time. Yeah, I don't really feel like as a kid you don't process it the same way. You don't think about it the same way. I mean, the first time I broke someone's arm, I was 13. And then from there, kind of, because the realization was you can do these things, you can hurt people. But case in point, I mean, even now you talk about background checks, this, that, and the third. There are very few federations because martial arts isn't regulated like that. That kind of like I know because I'm a coach for the United States Judo Association. We're all background checked, but we still dealt with our fair share of pedophiles and because grappling in general. You know what I'm saying? Like I mean, like you got somebody in a leg bolt. And you're looking to give them the under so you can kind of spin underneath them and stuff like that. You are in compromising positions all the time. So what's the difference between good touching, bad touching? What should be a red flag? What shouldn't be? You know what I mean? And stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, again,
I think the only real way that we can change the industry is if we start trying to educate the consumer base. I think everyone's already trying to work, like, to give you an example. You can't pull people out of a cult. It is impossible. Pulling people out of a cult does not work.
Like, we're not a cult.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not a cult. No,
because
go ahead.
The instructor has already cut them off at the pass for what everyone else is going to tell them. That's how cults operate. The leader is going to tell all of the students off the bat and set a foundation of this is what everyone's going to tell you, but this is why they're wrong.
Yeah.
And then by the time you go to talk to them, hey, man, that's a little bullshit. He said you'd say that. But, like, that's how cults operate. So you're not going to change the industry by changing individual schools.
I almost thought you started talking about organized religion for a second there.
Well, it's very similar. Yeah. But what you can do is you can educate the masses who aren't in the martial arts and let them know what they should require as consumers. Because all this is a service.
Yep.
Someone's paying you money. You're teaching them a lesson. Same as if it was music, dance, anything else. Paying you money, you're providing a service. If you get anything supplemental out of that, like you learn honor and integrity and discipline, that's great. Not everybody does. But that's maybe not why they join. And that's okay. I can't dictate why they're learning what they're learning. That's up to the individual. All I can do is teach it to them. What they do with that information is completely up to them. But what I can do is I can teach the masses, hey, you should probably ask. First question, by the way, most people ask when they go into a martial arts studio is, how much does it cost? That's it. That's the day one question. Yeah. What they should be asking is, hey, is everybody local federally background checked here? And if the consumer base starts doing that, the consumer base will dictate what the schools will have to do to survive. So if they go, man, every time someone comes in, they ask for background checks and they keep leaving and we're about to go out of business. But the guy across the street has background checks, so he's winning. Maybe I should get background checks.
Yeah.
So the consumer base will dictate what the facilities will have to do to grow with the industry.
I like that. Yeah.
So,
I agree with you. I think
Or-
that should be employed, yeah.
The flip side of that is the terrifying side, which I can see coming. It's already happened in several states. They've already tried to do this. It's never worked yet. What will eventually happen is if this keeps going down the path it's going of rape, pedophilia, fraud, extortion, the government will eventually start looking at that. And when they do, they will regulate it. And if they regulate it, we won't get a say-so anymore. And certain things and certain operations and traditions might die if we don't, as a group, as a community of martial artists, start to self-regulate and say this as a community as a whole, jiu-jitsu, karate, judo, sumo, doesn't matter what it is, this is what we don't tolerate together.
Yeah.
And, yeah, we might not agree all the time, but shit, that's like any other family, right? We don't agree all the time. That's okay. But as long as we can have some certain standards, like, again, a background check is very simple. Very simple. How many lives, and by lives, not just deaths, but, like, what about children's futures? If they've been molested by an instructor. I think I did a video probably about 2-3 years ago. It was an hour and a half long on YouTube. It's still there. And it's made up of like 15 to 30-second news clips of nothing but martial artists who rape kids. It's an hour and a half long. Like,
That's got to tell you.
yeah, and I do a story probably once or twice a week of that. It's never ending, and that's because we don't have any real standards. Again, if we can't agree on what punch works or what kick works, who gives a shit? We should at least agree that maybe kids shouldn't be raped.
Yeah, the guys should be background check. I feel like we pay more attention in grappling arts than we do in the non-grappling arts, and then you start asking yourself, well, how does that happen in a non-grappling art or a non-grappling system? Like, what did the person miss? You know what I'm saying, to the instructors? But then you go, well, no, the grooming happened.
Yeah, I'm going through a lawsuit right now. There was a gentleman who hired a guy who's a registered sex offender. Very easy to find. You type in his name, it's the first 3 pages of Google. You can't miss it.
Shit.
Right? Super easy to find. And the instructor says that he didn't know. That's bullshit. I know for a fact he knew. But that instructor, after I made a story about that, saying, hey, this guy had a registered sex offender at his martial arts studio, he was around children, and I have proof that he knew 3 years before he says he knew, because I had actual students contact me and tell me, hey, I personally spoke with this instructor. I spoke with the owner and told him this. And he was like, oh, don't say anything. You know, we're keeping him away from kids' classes. That's all a lie. And so he's trying to sue me for that. And at the end of the day, I will go to bat and court every time for the safety of kids. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what money needs to be spent. It doesn't matter, because what's the cost of a child's?
Yeah. And they end up damaged. They end up damaged for the rest of their lives. No, like I said, again, you're making me more of a super fan now at this point. I'm kind of going, see, I'm like, wow, now we're learning. Yeah, man, I mean, I love it. So it looks like there's something else going on. I don't want to keep taking up all your time.
I'm in no rush, man.
Okay.
So.
Well, I'm about so shit. Then keep the headphone on. I ain't gonna tell you no. I like how that you're spending the time to really talk about the things that we all have in common, and I feel like in the martial community, that should happen more than anything else. But the problems that we run into is like we're tribal by nature. And stuff like that. So, and case in point, we recently did an episode called "It's a Context." It was our last our podcast episode before this one, and we had talked about, like, I guess it was, so basically Michael J. White was asked the question. It wasn't so much as him, but other martial artists have been asked that question. We said, well, what's the best martial system, or this, that, and we all kind of start going into this one or that one, and you know, and again, it goes by the masses. Like, case in point, I always say the best marketing that I've seen to date as far as martial arts goes, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I said, you know, that no matter what people think about the first MMA and the first Ultimate Fighter, all I know is here's something. They figured out a way to market this, still teach it correctly, and have gotten better at regulating where it goes, how it goes, this, that, and the third. I mean, yes, there have been break-offs, like 10th Planet broke off and stuff like Eddie Bravo. He's got his own thing and stuff, and his people do great. But even now, there's sort of well, everywhere I've been anyway, like I make it a point now to visit different Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools and stuff like that. Like I've never been smashed the way, like I've never had those horror stories. Now don't get me wrong, knee smashing and all that other stuff to get around. So that's.
You haven't had a mat enforcer try to take you out.
Well, yeah, exactly, and it's just kind of like, well, why? I'm like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's ego. It's ego. Like I think again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. In martial arts, it's very much if you don't do what I do for the reason I do it, then you're not worthy. And I think that's bullshit. I think that if somebody wants to do martial arts, let's say Aikido, people make fun of Aikido all the time. Again, if that helps that person reach their personal goal, that's the best martial art for them. Everyone's different. And over the last 26 years of doing this, I've taught people who were in wheelchairs, missing limbs, cerebral palsy. Would those people ever be able to defend themselves as well as someone with able-bodied? Probably not. Maybe there are some examples every once in a while, right? There was a UFC fighter who only had one arm who did fantastic. But again, that's an exception.
Well, yeah, the exception does not make the rule. Yes.
And so most people who are not able-bodied would not be able to physically do the same things. Like if I said, hey, do a push-up, and you have no arms, you're probably not doing a push-up.
No, you ain't doing a push-up.
So, and that's okay. Just not your thing. You would have to find something else to do. And so if somebody said boxing's the best, you got to learn how to box, and I say that to a guy with no arms, that's going to be a slap in his face. Or if I say, hey, man, Taekwondo's where it's at, but the dude's got no legs, probably a slap in his face too. So it's all based on the individual and what their personal goals are. That is the best martial art. It's a puzzle, and we want to find the piece that fits them. It's not a cookie-cutter thing. Everybody wants that, and that's another issue I see in the industry. This is the best martial art. For who?
Yeah.
Maybe for you. That's great. That's awesome. But what about the guy who doesn't want to get into fights for a living? What about the guy who wants to become like an 87-11 stunt guy? He might not want to do jiu-jitsu. He might want to do taekwondo because he might want to learn acrobatic kicking, and he might want to compete in sport karate and then use that as a stepping stone to make a career for himself. So that is the best martial art for them.
Yes.
And if they're not fighting all the time, are they going to be as effective versus someone who does fight all the time? Probably not. Will they be more effective than someone who never trains, who sits on the couch, who never has thrown a kick in their life? They're going to be way more effective than the average dude on the street because they at least do that.
Yes.
So I think that people have this weird misconception that if you do martial arts, that somehow it creates this armor around you. All it does is just changes the odds a little bit.
It was the way it was. The way it used to be anyway. I will tell you, as far as my martial journey was concerned, we were almost superheroes.
Martial Maze presents the Modern Combative series on YouTube. The Martial Maze takes an in-depth documentary-style approach to not only the martial arts techniques found in the systems, but the practitioners of those very systems as well. With over a combined 50-plus years of martial arts experience, Barack Yalin Shidoshi and Israel Lopez Sensei endeavor to explore it all as they travel the United States, exploring modern combative systems. So be sure not to miss the Martial Maze presents Modern Combative series on YouTube.
I still think we are to a degree. I'm like, I say this because, even when I was coming up, I once got in a situation where it was a 5-on-1 in a bathroom at a nightclub, and I was covered in everyone's blood, but yeah.
Well, what do you think about like BJ Penn?
No. I mean,
you got to figure the guy, jiu-jitsu legend. He was able to do incredible things. He was able to become a UFC champion. Gets knocked outside out of a nightclub.
Well, no, but here's the thing. So I'm going to get into that. It's so in the sport context of something like MMA, right? It's a sport. It has its rules. And you got gloves on. There are a lot of things, that kind of, and you're training for the one person. And no matter what anybody tells you, I personally will tell you this, that you never think you're going to die in an MMA match. You just don't. They never do. You might get knocked out. You might get tapped out. You know what I'm saying? In real life, you don't. You for that 1 second you're there, but look, like again, what you just said,
so
we're not superhuman.
This is something that I talk about quite a bit because I think that it's something that I think people maybe look at different than I do. I think that most people look at it a certain way, and I just don't. The common misconception is there are no rules on the street. It's actually a lie. That's a blatant lie. That's not real. They're called laws, and they operate exactly like rules in a tournament. For example, if you don't get caught, you don't get in trouble. If I'm in a competition, I don't get caught, I don't get in trouble. I was at ADCC and watched a guy pull out a knife in the middle of a competition and try to stab a guy. That's obviously against the rules. He still could have killed him right there because you can kill anybody at any given moment for any given reason. So this misconception that there are no rules in the street. Well, I mean, there's no specific rule set, like this is what we are both agreeing to. But at the end of the day, that just means the rule set is broadened because what we have to both do is I have to say at the end of the day, I'm aware there's a rule here, like I can't kill you or I go to jail, but I'm choosing to break that rule to save my life. I still am making a conscious decision to break a rule for my safety. Just like people in MMA fights who might kick someone in the groin on purpose. I'm choosing to break that rule for my safety.
Okay, I'm getting what you're saying.
And so at the end of the day, yes, there are rules in the street. It's just, are we willing to break those rules?
I think when most folks think of that, when I use that term, like there are no rules in a street fight, I'm thinking from a sport context of being in a ring, where there are specific rules where we agree upon them that say I'm not going to take this computer and smash you with it. You know what I'm saying? Like those kind of things. So,
but even there have been cases where people completely broken those rules. Like, for instance, there was a very famous boxing match where a boxer had literal plaster in his gloves.
Yes, yeah, he beat that guy half to death. I remember that fight.
So, like, again, we're both saying, yeah, maybe we follow those rules as long as I don't get caught. And that's a street fight. Yeah, I'll follow these rules unless I get caught. Like if I kill someone, I still broke a rule and there are consequences to that. And so I think that the reason that I'm so against that saying, that very specifically, is because every time I've gone, like I've been very fortunate to go around to a lot of different schools, Krav Maga schools, self-defense gurus, things like that. And I've noticed a lot of the people who say that usually use it as a reason not to compete.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
And so what happens is it winds up being this like barrier. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to compete because there are rules there and I'd kill you. It's like, okay, well, if you can kill me, you could probably be good enough not to kill me. And it also makes it so that way you're missing a huge part. And again, specifically for that, you're missing a huge part of what will make you effective in the street, which is pressure testing. Now, I could just go out and get in street fights all the time, but eventually I'll go to jail or die. Most people are not actually doing that. Or they're a dick, right? And so
no. I like that, but I like how you're saying that, though. I never looked at it from that perspective. I got to tell you, okay, I'll meditate on it.
It's just a different thought process.
No, but again, everything goes into context. I like that, though, and it definitely gives me something to ponder because I never really thought about it that way, and that yes, the charlatans and the folks that really can't fight use that as I never thought about it that way, but you're right. Or my favorite is always, this is a killing blow. And I go, well, how many people have you killed? And
yes.
Or when the science doesn't agree with you, when you say you can snap a neck this way, I say, well, you can sprain a neck that way. But you're not.
So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. So, again, very fortunate. I'm still very grateful that I have a good network of people that I can just say, hey, what do you think about this? And I can ask somebody who does that thing for a living. So a friend of mine, his name's Dr. Bo Hightower. And Bo Hightower is one of the guys who's like the head of sports medicine for the guys over at Jackson Winklejohn. And Jackson Winklejohn are some of the best MMA fighters in the world. Champions upon champions have come out of that, right? And so I show him stuff. I'm like, so you literally crack people's necks for a living. So if anybody could break a neck, you could break a neck because that's what you do for a living. You crack necks. I was like, what are the odds of any of this actually breaking someone's neck? And it's like, it's not going to happen.
It's not. It's like taking tendons or like a cord. Can you take a cord and snap it in half? I'm like, you got some crazy strength if you're doing that. But we went through that whole thing. I mean, and then of course it was a thing on MythBusters as well. And it was just kind of like, you just can't. Like there's not enough torque. There's like X amount of torque per pound.
I miss that show.
Oh my God, I miss it so much.
They did one of my favorites. They talked about catching a sword.
Yeah.
And they built a machine that would like literally try to do it, and the hand got cut every time. Yeah.
So it's like, so then you start going, okay, well that's a trick, or that's a this, or that's a that.
Yeah.
And again, don't get me wrong, I still love the magic, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. Like so a friend of mine says to me, I miss the days where I'm like, when the monkey flies through and the dragon whips its tail, and like the old kung fu kind of things.
The Bruce Leroy style.
Well, yeah, I'm like, well, I mean, I can't watch that movie now anymore.
I love that movie.
Well, Vanity. Movie. I mean, come on, really. but no, it's just all the things that were just as a martial artist, and I try to turn it off. It's like me watching Die Hard. I love Die Hard, except for I'm like, nope, Fruit of the Poisonous Tree. Nope. At that point, Hans Gruber could just leave Nakatomi Building because he didn't committed all these crimes. And it was just, but it's the same thing with that movie. I'm like, it's kind of the way I feel about the Karate Kid. I was like, I was talking to my students about this yesterday. Well, no, it's not even the illegal kick. Should have been called the Okinawan Kid. Because there was no karate in that movie.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of martial arts is like it's ingrained in pop culture. And I think because of that, it allows a lot of people to love it, then learn it. Like Bruce Lee has probably one of the best quotes about this. He says that, and I'm going to paraphrase and mess up his quote, but I don't care. He said, like, when he first started learning the art, a kick was a kick, a punch was a punch, right? And when he started learning, before he started learning, a kick was a kick, a punch was a punch. When he started learning, a kick was more than a kick, and a punch was more than a punch. But then when he mastered the art, a kick was just a kick, a punch was just a punch. And I think that's how we are as martial artists. I think when we watch the movie, we don't know what they're doing. Like back in the 90s, the coolest thing that you would ever see in an action movie was a backflip, right? And now we have guys like, the forerunners, like the Anthony Atkins, the Daniel Sterlings, the Matt Emmigs, the guys who could fly, right? These jump spinning acrobatic kicks. And they set that groundwork up. So now when we watch like the Eddie 711 guys do their thing, or you watch Jackie Chan back in the day, you were like, oh my God, like that's amazing. Yes. Now guys do that and it's more casual. Like that's a standard for the industry now. And I think that what happens is we get in awe of that. We're like, oh, my God, that is amazing. And it makes us want to learn it. And then when we learn it, we go, oh, well, that's not so bad.
We're like, oh, I know how they did that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to do this, roll into this. And
it takes a little magic out of it. But I will say, like with the John Wick movie, one of my favorite things about the John Wick movie was you could watch it and you could pick up technique. You could be like, oh, that's a legit technique. That's an actual throw.
I was like, okay, nope, yes. All right, so he's going to snake it. Oh, and there's the rule. But yes, actually, John Wick 1, yes, 100%. John Wick 2,
yeah, there was a lot of fireman's carries. Every other technique in John Wick 2 was fireman's carries.
Because I think they were trying to have two arts that just are designed different. I'm like, with the whole, like you had the two guys that was really kung fu. It was, and I'm going, oh, grappling arts don't mix well for choreography that way.
My favorite John Wick is the last one that they did because they were using the environment. So every scene was like, all right, we're going to do a whole action scene now in like a big circular roundabout. And they're just using cars, right?
Yeah,
the whole thing.
That was just cars. Great. And they were like, the way they choreographed, like, I'm like, yes. I was like, this is why I go to movies.
Or like fighting up the stairs. He fights all the way up the stairs, gets knocked down all the way back down the stairs. I'm like, oh, that sucks. I was like, it took him 30 minutes to get up this damn thing.
But it's great. But that's right. But I'm like, those are the action scenes that we want. But so that's the problem. So now we've got all of that deliciousness, and now you rewatch an older movie and you go, wait a minute, no, what was wrong here? And you have to keep reminding yourself, oh, choreography. Case in point, Enter the Dragon. Love the movie, really do. But that when Bruce Lee's fighting that big dude, and I'm like, nope.
I like the beginning.
Not in a million years.
The beginning of that movie is gold. He winds up like having this. He has like almost like I think it's that movie. He's like rolling around with the guy, and he's got the original like puffy JKD of MMA gloves, and he's got the guy in like an arm
juji.
bar.
Yeah, it's just the weakest juji I've ever seen in my life.
All right.
And the guy just taps, and
but like that's or another one that'll break your heart is Lethal Weapon. The last scene in Lethal Weapon where he's like, let him go. And then they had like the
Oh,
fist
yeah,
fight.
yeah.
He got
He gets some in the
triangle choke.
Sengaku. Yeah, the Sengaku Jime. Yeah, yes, that's right. But you know what though? A lot of people had never seen that before.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Which
they-
is like that's the front runners,
They
right?
didn't realize that. I'm like, well, I said, for whoever did the fight choreography, they almost,
Yeah.
they almost had it.
For what that was, it was like advanced. Like you didn't really see.
A fight like that.
You
You're like,
didn't.
was that
You didn't
military?
really see. You didn't see rear naked chokes in movies. You didn't see almost any grappling because it was almost like they didn't know how to film it, or
Well, 'cause
jiu-jitsu
it's-
guys didn't make it into Hollywood yet.
I was going to tell you, because of the way we shoot a lot of our stuff, or the way I shoot, a lot of that's ready to go. Yeah, yep. You can just press record. Did you ever see that show, Mr. and Mrs. Smith? It's a show that's
the new
on the new
or-
one right now.
No, I haven't seen the new one yet.
Okay, because I was about to say she literally, the woman that's right there across from us looks like the woman who plays Mrs. Smith.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, that would just be weird.
That'd be cool though.
Well, because it's New York.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
Yeah,
it's
like
possible.
Yeah, it's possible. There'd be the same woman going, "Oh yeah, hey, fan of your work."
Yeah.
I mean, like that's just weird. But yeah, no, I'm like, so yeah, watching a lot of these old movies, man, going back to it, and I do a lot of times. I'll try to rewatch something and kind of go, because I watched this as a kid. The only one that was heartbreaking for me was Bloodsport. I can never watch it the same. Actually, I did the Urban Action Showcase.
Okay.
I met the director of that.
Did you meet Dukes?
No,
Okay.
because no, that wouldn't be good for anyone. Meeting him, no, it was so the director who actually filmed it and stuff like he did a couple of Jacques Clan's movies, but in my head though, I'm still like, yeah, but this is all predicated on a lie, and we all know it's a lie.
Yeah, well, that's the shame. So like that's the catch-22. So I have a lot of conversations like this in the DMs about like people who got famous with martial arts but weren't necessarily fighters, right? For instance, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee had no professional fights. Does that mean that he wasn't a martial artist? Of course he was. Does that mean that he didn't affect hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people to join martial arts? Probably millions at this point. Yeah, obviously he did. But the Ninja Turtles did the same thing, and they're not real. Or Power Rangers did the same thing. That's not real. Like those, like even the actors who played them were not the.
I thought there was only one. The guy who was the White Ranger or something like that. He
Yeah,
was
like
an
they
actual
added
martial.
him in.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
had to,
he was.
like-
Yeah, he was the only one who was actually a martial art. No, I thought some of them kind of
I
were.
mean, some of them were like martial artists, but
But
the
they were
idea
like the
was like they took
forms
this.
people,
They
yeah.
took this old Japanese show, and then they like just basically stole it, and then they were like, all right, well, we're just going to add in the acting, and then they're not the same people in the suits.
Yeah, because they got suits on. You don't need to. It's like the monkeys. Y'all don't need to know how to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I'm like, yeah. Oh man, there's so many different shows. Yeah, and then you just kind of you take that deep breath.
And that's okay. Like that's the beauty of martial arts. Like that's where I think that a lot of these like hardcore, like has to work in self-defense guys are kind of missing it. And when I started doing McDojoLife, I did have that mentality. But then I needed to consistently ask myself constantly, is what I'm saying correct? And I have to be wrong about something. So if I'm wrong, what am I missing? What am I missing? And then you start looking at the realities, right? The reality is we all get older. What I can do in my 20s is probably not the same thing I can do in my 60s, 70s, depending if I even have a healthy enough body to last that long. So what am I getting out of this past punching and kicking?
Yeah.
Because eventually you have to ask that question or you will quit.
Well, you know what? And again, it goes back to something. So I kind of felt the same way you did, and I evolved since then for just that very same reason. If I live my life in such a way where violence is missing me, meaning I'm never getting into a fight. So the average, after I would say the average boy, after 16 years old, if he gets into a fight, it'll be by choice. You don't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like you could legitimately avoid violence for the rest of your life.
Most of the time, yeah.
And not so much as for females. Unfortunately, that number goes through the roof the older they get, domestically.
Yeah.
but so if you learned all these things as best practices, you know to leave the club at this time because they're gonna shoot up the place. Leave.
I actually I had an altercation. So I've only been in a couple altercations. as an adult that I didn't get paid for. Getting paid's different. Like when I was bouncing, you get in altercations, that's what you get paid for. Fighting people, you get paid to do that, or you go to a tournament and you hope to get paid, so like that's all good. But I've only had a couple actual physical altercations, street fights as an adult. Only 3, really. And one of them was at a nightclub. So I'm hanging out, we're having fun with a bunch of friends of mine, and it's around Halloween time, so they have like a Halloween thing. And like maybe there's like half the people dressed up for Halloween, but everybody else is just hanging out at the club. So as we're hanging out at the club, a bunch of my friends had come into town, and we noticed that there was a little tiny chick, maybe 90 pounds soaking wet, and like her boyfriend, and they were hanging out on the dance floor because not a lot of people were there yet. So we just noticed that they were a couple, and we were all hanging out. Well, I guess that the boyfriend had left to go get a drink or go to the bathroom or something, right? So as she's standing there, some big Friday Night Lights looking linebacker dude, he's clearly hammered drunk, and he starts like kind of grabbing on her. And my friend notices it first, and he walks over and he's like, hey man, like she's obviously uncomfortable with this, like please stop. Well, the guy's so drunk, he's treating it like a confrontation, so he starts getting in my friend's face. And I felt bad because my friend was only in town. He drove 2 hours from Orlando to come hang out with us.
Oh, wow.
So he was only going to be there for a little while and then have to drive back that night. So I was like, shit, he's going to come out here, hang out with us, and then get into this fight. He's going to have to leave. So another friend of mine walked up, and he's like, hey guys, like let's relax, like let's calm down. Well, the drunk guy starts getting into his face. I'm like, oh shit. So like now it's almost inevitable that this guy is escalating. So I walk over and I'm like, hey man, our fault. Our mistake. We apologize. I am so sorry. I'll buy you a drink. And out of nowhere, I guess I'm just the nerdiest looking dude in the bunch. He grabs me. Like I had like the silver suit on, like it's Halloween, right?
Okay.
But I had a real dress suit on, or real dress shirt on underneath. I don't care about the costume. I care about my damn dress shirt because it was an expensive dress shirt. So he grabs me by the suit jacket. I don't care about that. But then his other hand was grabbing me by my dress shirt. I was like, shit. So I'm thinking like, okay, I could break the grip. But it's like a hand. It's not like my hand's not a giant hand. This guy had a hand. I was like, oh shit. So I'm like, if I go to break that grip, he might just rip my shirt because he's going to rip the buttons. I was like, this is an expensive shirt. So like all this is going through my head as he's like pushing me through the crowd. And I'm thinking, well, at least he's not hitting me, right? I'm like, hey, at least he's not hitting me. Like, I'm good. We can just keep doing this all day, right? We're just playing judo grips at this point, right? So then a friend of mine grabbed his shoulder. And so when a friend of mine grabbed his shoulder, he turned and rips the damn shirt. I was like, God damn it. I was like, all I wanted out of this altercation was not to get this shirt ripped. So I jump up, I put him in a rear naked choke. And he goes to sleep, and I ease him to the floor because we're in a nightclub, so it's like concrete. So I ease him to the floor, and here I am, like, with my ripped shirt. I'm like, God damn, I just didn't want to rip my shirt. So I'm kneeling beside him because I know eventually he's going to wake up. And a friend of his runs through the crowd. While I'm kneeling, I'm like, oh, shit, he's going to kick me in the face. So, like, I just go, stop. And it worked. Like, the guy just stops. And he goes, hey, I just want to get my friend and we want to leave. I was like, you can leave. I was like, you're not waking him up. I was like, he'll wake up on his own when the bouncers get here. I was like, I'm not letting you wake him up so we can start this all over again. Because he's not going to be happy when he wakes up, right? So he winds up, like, laying there for a while. I mean, the whole thing was probably 10, 15 minutes, right? So as the 10, 15 minutes starts to go on, eventually bouncers run in, and they're like, hey, you got to leave. I'm like, I'm not leaving. I didn't do anything wrong. Like, I didn't even hurt the guy. So they take him out. They let me stay. Night goes on. About an hour later, everybody's on the dance floor having a good time, and some random lady drops a beer bottle. Just drops it on the floor, right? A bouncer rushes in, immediately rushes in, and, oh, excuse me, and sweeps up their beer bottle. So what I'm thinking to myself is, you had the wherewithal to hear a beer bottle fall in a nightclub with all that noise, and you saw that happen, watched it happen. Where the hell were you when I was having to deal with this dude? Like,
listen, they were sitting in the corner going, oh, he's about to put him to sleep. Oh, he just ripped his shirt. Oh, no.
I just want to say, I recognize you from YouTube.
Yes, sir.
I'm Alan Goldberg.
Oh, Rob, nice to meet you.
Yeah, this is Alan Goldberg.
I'm the guy that always goes there to Frank Dukes.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Yes. We were just talking about Frank Dukes.
Yeah, Frank Dukes is a odd character. He's one of those people that I think truly believes his lie. Yeah, I think he's delusional.
Yes.
Yeah, he's off.
I buried him.
Yeah.
You ever hear of Action Martial Art Magazine?
Yes.
That's mine.
So he.
Oh, that's awesome,
So he
yeah.
holds the biggest hall of it's the Hall of Honors. It's the biggest convention in the United States.
Do you still print? Do you still print? Digital.
I'll be printing once a year.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. I don't know. There's just something about print that just like a kid, like when you go and you know the new edition's coming out and you pick it up off the rack and you open it up. There's something about that.
I printed for 25 years.
For sure.
Free of charge. Gave out 10,000 copies every year.
So I was in the Martial Arts History Museum.
Okay, I started that.
Yeah, and the Martial Arts History Museum has like that big wall, and it's all the old magazines, Black Belt magazine and Action Martial Arts magazine.
Started that with Michael Masuda.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I was the first guy to help him make that happen.
That's cool.
New York and he was California.
Yeah, it's needed. I think that it's a beautiful thing to have our history preserved like that,
Well, yeah, I mean, that's actually why we started doing the Modern Combatives episodes, and we started off with a lot of the alumni are typically, somebody asked me, well, why so many older folks? And I was like, well, I mean, one, these guys are still very much active. That's the first thing. And I said, two, we really wanted to chronicleize because a lot of these guys coming up now will tell you, well, I trained under this person, or even in our neck of the woods.
Lineage is important.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, outside of somebody having that lineage on their wall, I mean, you hear a lot of these guys, especially in this area of the United States, New York. A lot of guys. There was a Dr. Moses Powell. Then there was this was a Sanukis, and it would spawn a whole group of folk. You know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. And then you have Ronald Duncan? Am I saying it? Ronald Duncan and Duncan Martial Arts and So then you had this gentleman right here who's behind us right now,
with an amazing.
It was
jacket
a Sifu Alan Goldberg.
I love the jacket. That jacket is slick.
But I mean, so
yeah, I'd love to. Absolutely.
4,000 people.
Yeah, I'd have a good time. Yeah, for sure. I'd love that. That would mean a lot.
All right, I'll see you. All right, I'll give you a call.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, and also or Cedro Abdul Malta-Kabir, which is Swam and stuff like that. But all of those dudes that we did, actually Swam, we ended up doing a documentary based upon an urban legend.
Hello, this is Israel Lopez Sensei of the Martial Maze. If you're a fan of our podcast or our YouTube channel, The Martial Maze Presents Modern Combatives, did you know that you could support future episodes on both platforms by becoming a subscriber to our Patreon? Membership entitles you to exclusive Martial Maze content not shared on either the podcast or our YouTube channel, The Martial Maze Presents Modern Combatives, as well as limited edition only available to our Patreon subscribers merchandise. That's exclusive stuff, y'all. Where there are 3 different tiers to choose from, bronze, silver, or gold memberships, gold being the very best. No matter what tier, and to show our appreciation for you, the subscriber, and to celebrate our 4th season of the Martial Maze podcast, we are giving away to one lucky subscriber every month free Martial Maze merchandise. That merchandise is anything that we sell on our Martial Maze page. That's www.martialmaze.com. A new winner will be chosen each month through the duration of 2024. That's our way of sincerely saying thank you. But please keep in mind, you can't win if you're not a subscriber. That's the Martial Maze at Patreon. And once again, thank you for becoming a subscriber, and thank you for listening.
And it turned out, because it turned out the urban legend was true. Like, so back in the day, coming up, there was, it sounds like I'm plugging, but I'm not.
Okay,
I'm just going to give you the short version. So back in the day,
Plug
there was
away,
this,
man.
there was a story, like the Nino Brown and all that other, like New Jack City kind of stuff. And there was, they said that there was, along with the mosque, that there's this group of martial artists who beat all the drug dealers up and kick them out.
Okay.
Kicked them off the block. They
Yeah.
couldn't sell any drugs. And we all heard this, and of course it sounds,
Like
come on.
urban legend.
Yeah,
kind of
like,
thing, yeah.
they really need martial artists,
Yeah.
And then I ended up hearing the story again, and we did an episode with Cedro's wife, Dr. Odette Russell. And she ends up telling, we're just in the middle of a conversation because we had filmed something, and then I had her send me something else because they're in Georgia. And somehow we started talking about it. I had to pull my car over, and I'm like, yo, what? Wait a minute, that's true? No. So I actually looked it up. It turned out that the whole story.
So there's a documentary about this?
It's true. Yeah. So I ended up doing a documentary. It's called The Siege.
But send that to me. I want to check that out.
It was just kind of like, and then meeting all the people that were kind of involved, like and just that whole area, like that, just South Jamaica, Queens, and just it was hard to believe something that sounded so like it's something like you think of stuff of Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Well, I mean, I think some of the best stories are the true stories. Like the Count Dante stuff is incredible to me. Like, Count Dante is like this hairdresser in Chicago, and he just looks like a bad guy on like a James Bond movie, like really weird facial hair and stuff like that. And then when you actually like look into it, like they had a real dojo storm, and he stabs a guy, and it winds up making the Chicago Sun like front page.
Oh, wow.
Like someone got stabbed in like a dojo storm. Like it's like amazing that these like weird legends, and we've been working on a documentary for a couple years now about frauds in the martial arts industry. And we filmed for 30 days. Then we had to like basically wait for almost 2 years to film because of COVID. After we were able to get our crowdfunding up, we were like, all right, let's film in like 6 months. Everybody's ready to go. We got about 2 months before we were supposed to film, and COVID hit. And we were like, it breaks your heart. But it's like we had to wait. And, back then when COVID first hit, they were like, yeah, it's going to be 2 weeks to curve. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
2 weeks to curve. What a crock of shit that was. So then 2 years later, we were finally able to film what we wanted to film. So then after that, though, like we've been trying to finish filming because we didn't have the funds to finish. So we actually got Jocko Willink as an executive producer now of our film, and we're going back to finish the film in April, May.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we'll have that out probably. We'll have it done by the end of the year.
No, that's great, man. I'm digging that. I'm like, because again, I mean yeah.
I mean, I've seen some weird stuff from people who believe they can knock people out with their mind, or people who run cults, or people who hide behind certain religious practices and toss it into martial arts and brainwash people. It is wild out there because it's unregulated.
Well, because again, I go circling back to where we started. It's not regulated, and to a degree, it should be. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, even if it's just regulated by martial artists, folks always talk, well, joining that federation or that federation. Don't get me wrong. Even that's not 100% perfect, and it has definitely its fair share of politics.
Yeah.
But you go, something's better than nothing. And if you didn't have these kind of things, then you got suckers that get sucked in all the darn time. You know what I'm saying? We had that same thing happen with judo and stuff like that. You have people who were just, they did judo as a kid. Got turned 18, 19 years or whatever, did only sport judo, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And then they come back to it after, and they start opening up places. And they're teaching this judo. Well, one, incomplete. Two, it's from a sports only perspective. And then so they got to the point where they started regulating it. They said, no. You have to have a certified ranked examiner. You can't just give rank anymore. And then you also have to be teacher certified. Like that. So a coach, so they call it coach because all of us are Olympic coaches. So there's a coach certified, and that means you have to be tested, and you have to be able. And it was just really just so that we know that you know what you're supposed to know.
Yeah,
and like that.
Even basic curriculum is important. And every art's a little different, and they're.
Well, that's another thing. I'm not sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go for it. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. I said that is the hard part with hybrid systems. So you take something like judo.
Yeah.
The curriculum is the same. No matter what school you go to, there's the 40 original throws, and they go in this order. You know what I'm saying? No matter what. It's no different. I said I was starting to learn the same thing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. No matter where you pick it up from, you have to learn these sets of things first.
Yeah, you're going to – and it's funny because, like, I feel like Judo and Jiu-Jitsu, like, they're so compatible. It's just one puts emphasis.
Judo and wasn't.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the ground fighting from judo.
If you go to Jiu-Jitsu, you're just going to focus primarily on
Newaza,
And, you're going to learn some basic throws, right? You're going to learn some basic takedowns. but you're probably going to focus more on the newaza. But if you go to judo, it's a little bit more stand-up heavy.
It's stand-up. Well, it has to be.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Well, we always say I hit people with the earth. That is my fight ender. If I'm not on the ground grappling with you, it's because you knew how to fall.
Yeah,
God
exactly.
darn it.
And I love those terminologies, like jiu-jitsu is folding clothes with people in them.
I know, I love that. Yeah. Yes, that is so great. All right, my man. Hey, like we've been going. I mean, this is gonna actually be a full episode.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I appreciate you having me on. I'm sorry at the beginning. I had to. They were talking, and I was having a hard time speaking. So hopefully that isn't too terrible.
No, you know what I mean. I can always chop it up because we just kind of got into it.
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
like, but it's great. I mean, they always say don't meet your heroes, but I guess in this particular case, okay, I'm good. It was nice to meet you.
I'm a dick, I promise. I'll disappoint you. I'll disappoint you later.
No, it was so great. Well, I will tell you lived up to the hype.
I'm actually really excited to be here and teach. I'm just glad that they give me the opportunity because I'm, before COVID hit again, I was trying to teach, and a part of our saving for our budget for our film was going to be me, and I was going to set up seminars in certain places.
Okay.
And I was going to go teach at legit gyms, and then that would save me on plane tickets, so that way we can film with the frauds. So we were going to go. I was going to teach legit seminars, and then that was going to help the budget for the film.
Oh, that's like, and it's not even so much as I got you. Well, you know what? That's literally when we started doing modern combatives, we got a lot of no's from people because it was originally called Battle Tested. That was the name of the show was supposed to be. The Marshall Mays Presents Battle Tested. We were calling it Modern Combatives on its own for a little while. Then we ran into a snafu where we were told that you can't use. There's actually a show called Modern Combatives.
Oh, damn. Okay.
And so we have to do Marshall Mays Presents Modern Combatives.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And stuff like that. Well, yeah, it made more sense when we did it that way. In fact, we ended up running into a snafu with a guy, Byron Rogers. He ended up doing the podcast with us, but he's a EP Protection. And he was like, well, because he's on the cover of what's the name of that shooter game? It's military. Come on, everybody plays that game.
Call of Duty?
Yeah, Call of Duty. He's actually
you.
on the cover of it.
Okay.
And stuff like that. With the hog, he's the guy holding the big old gun, and he was like, so he agrees to do the thing, and he talked to his agent, and he's like, oh yeah, those guys are great. And then he's like, oh guys, I'm under contract. I thought you were this. But you're this, and we were like, oh, okay.
So he thought,
we were
different.
modern combatives because he's military, and so we ended up having to change all of that stuff up and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Go live.
Yeah, that sucks when that happens.
Go live. Here. Hold on for 1 second. Boom. No, not for kids. No, we're just going live.
Do you know Jody?
No, some of these individuals I'm learning, meeting for the first time.
He'll be teaching here in a bit, but if you get an opportunity to sit down and talk with him, I love his philosophy. He's a fantastic coach. He's just a great dude.
Now, which one?
Which
right
one's
here,
studying? Closest white gi in the front, right
okay.
next to
Oh,
him.
yes.
He is fantastic, and years and years and years of experience. Like, he's probably one of the best sport karate guys for sure in New York. Like, he's really good at what he does. So I'm a huge fan of what he does. And, we were talking earlier about him, about his philosophy, like having a fight is having a conversation with someone. And you're just
so that was the gentleman. Yeah, okay. All right, yeah. I'm digging it, man. Yeah, no, I like circling back real quick. I was thinking about that with so what better way to point out the charlatans to be doing at the seminar? Because that's normally where they show up. A lot of times they show up as part of a group because then they get in those pictures and you see them and they're hey, I was with this one, and it helps validate the lie.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And instead you go, okay, well, now you're there, and so that's what I was. So that's so everybody thought that the modern combatives were going to be sandbagging people, doing showing up at your school and going, okay, well, here, fight me, and and it's because we're both martial artists, Barack Doshi and myself, and I'm like, no, that's never been the case. I said, but we vet. I'm like, a lot of the folks that we've had on, we really went through a lot of pains to make sure that they were legitimate enough where we didn't have somebody go, that guy is trash.
Yeah.
Or that guy is.
It's weird. Like, I get this a lot when I go travel to places and I want to go stop in at a gym and train. Like, it's almost like a weird target. It's like, dude, like, they either think that I'm there to call them out. I'm not. Like, if you don't see a camera, I'm not there for that. And I'm very direct. They think that they want to see what I'm made out of. They're like, oh, let's see what this guy has. It's like nothing. I'm literally here just to train. Like I never show up to sparring days. I have no need. I want to learn technique. I want to learn what you guys have to do. I want to train, have a good time. Like that ego part of me is long gone.
All right, my man. All right, so yeah, hey, thank you for being on McDojoLife, ladies and gentlemen. There's a documentary coming up, okay, and we are going to get you up at some point during the seminar and stuff like that, so you will be on our regular film.
Cool, yeah,
but,
for sure.
Yeah, we've talked enough where I'm going to have to have this as like an episode.
Yeah, for sure. Whatever you need, man.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm like, hey, there's no one around to take the picture. And Brock has my phone.
Here.
All right, no, but can we get that picture?
Yeah, for sure, man.
I'm like, yeah.
I got a phone.
We're at Deadly Art of Survival. I got treats right now. I'm like, hey, all right.
There you go.
All right. Yeah, you can vet me. You can find me on Google. Google me.
I got you. Make sure you're not like a rapist.
Yeah. Make sure I'm not. Actually, no, you got to be careful. You remember, when you look me up, look up Israel Lopez Judo, because oddly enough, there is an Israel Lopez who was convicted.
Likely story.
Hold on, wait a minute. It's the worst. Hold on, wait a minute. I feel I need to validate this real quick.
What's your Instagram handle? What's
just the Marshall Mays. Hold on, wait a minute. I feel like I have to validate this now real quick so that you know I'm not crazy. Hold on, wait.
This is it?
Yep,
All
there
right,
it is.
cool.
Wait a minute. What? So I'm going to give you my name. ISRAELLOPEZ. Springfield, Mass. That's where I'm originally from. And jail / bail for me. And then so I only noticed because a parent ended up saying, hey, like they asked me where I was for the weekend, and I was like, what do you mean? Well, how was jail? And I'm like, I'm never in jail. What? But that's Israel Lopez. See, it's that guy.
That guy.
That's not me.
Definitely not you.
Not me. So I always tell folks, I said, if you're gonna look me up, like it's ridiculous that I had to do this, right? I'm like, Israel Lopez, Judo.
Yeah.
And then you get me. So now Israel Lopez Judo. And then I show up everywhere.
I got you. What you need to do is start saying like # never been in jail. Just add that to everything.
# never been to jail. I'm like, yo, it was the worst, man. Because I mean, like, because bad press is bad press. You don't get to come back from that.
Yeah.
And then having a parent say it, I was like, oh, I teach kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, no,
Yeah.
No, wrong guy.
Yeah, I'm real particular. I make sure I do a lot of research before I ever call people out like that. That's a good way to get a lawsuit, man. You got to make sure that you do your research. You got to make sure you know what you're talking about. Like, a lot of people jump the gun too when they try to call out people, and they don't understand that when you start calling someone out publicly, the very first thing they're going to do is start covering their tracks. Mm-hmm. So if you're not willing to go the whole entire 9 yards, if you're not willing to take it all the way as far as it has to go, even if it has to go to court, don't do it. Because all you're going to do is protect them. Like, they're going to go through. They're going to start deleting things that they've said, pictures, photos, videos, and then that stuff is just gone. You can't find it again to get the proof and evidence you need to convict them.
Yeah.
And so that's tricky. It's a hard thing to do.
All right, sir. Well, thank you for being on the Marshall Mays.
Of course, dude.
All right, man.
Thank you.
All right. I'm like, peace and soul.